Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's logged in. Everyone's audio, video, everything is clear. I welcome everyone to this third study circle meeting of GST PM. The topic is of a very recent importance. We know that on 21st of August, a new procedure, rather in the existing procedure, some new add-ons has been brought in by the government, and many practitioners have already started facing problems here. So we thought that we conduct a small event on this issue so that our members can solve their queries. And for that, we have a very charming speaker, Nitin Bhutaji, with us. Many of you may know him. He is very active on various WhatsApp groups, and I've myself asked so many queries on various WhatsApp groups to him, and he's answered them satisfactorily. So we thought that who else to solve our queries today than him. It is an honor to have you, Nitinji, today. I know this is your maiden
Thank you.
attempt, GST PM, but we all are very confident that you will be satisfying all the members and their queries today. So I would not go into much detail now. I would request convener of Law and Representation Committee, Aditya Surte, to formally introduce today's speaker, Nitinji Bhuta. Please, Aditya.
Thank you very much, Raj. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a pleasure today to introduce today's speaker, Shri Nitin Bhuta. Mr. Nitin Bhuta is a BCom grad CWA and FCA. He's a graduate of Mulund College of Commerce, Mulund. He became a chartered accountant just 16 days before the completion of his articleship training in the year 1992. He is the proprietor of Nitin Bhuta and Company Chartered Accountants based in Mumbai. He secured 13th rank at the All India level at the intermediate level of ICAI examination. He regularly speaks at WIRC, NASIN, GST certification courses, as well as various study circles in Mumbai as well as outside Mumbai on GST. He is one of the panelists on WIRC for resolving the queries of GSTR 9 and 9C. He is also the founder, member, and honorary treasurer of CGPI, that is Confederation of GST Professionals and Industries. During his training, as well as after he established his practice in 1992, he had the privilege of getting exposure to various industries like advertising, entertainment, research, pharmaceutical research companies, pharmaceutical and manufacturing industry, banking industry, celebrity management companies, medical fraternities, skincare and wellness industry, graphic designers, and so on and so forth. He has been practicing in direct and indirect taxation as well as management advisory services. Presently, he is actively involved in the with limited scale of doing audits, direct and indirect taxation, management advisory, as well as handling litigation matters of corporates as well as non-corporate clients. He is also actively involved in vetting out of drafted legal documents pertaining to business arrangements from tax compliance perspective. Apart from all of this, he enjoys traveling and reading a lot. He has traveled almost all parts of India. He has also traveled USA, Thailand, and various other parts of the world. With this very brief introduction, I welcome today's speaker, CA Nitin Bhutaji. I now request our speaker for the day, CA Nitin Bhuta, to begin his session. Sir, please.
Thank you, Rajbhai. Thank you, GSPM. And thank you, Aditya, for such a nice introduction. I will share my screen. Till then, is this visible now?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So the topic which has been allotted to me for the deliberating is the new schema of Aadhaar-based registration under GST, as well as the revocation of a GST cancellation. So the presentation would be shared in two tranches. First one being the Aadhaar-based GST registration, followed by the revocation of cancellation. Usually all the speakers will put the disclaimer at the end. I am putting the disclaimer in the beginning. The reason is, whatever I will share, they are my personal opinions. They won't be binding on GSTPM or my parent body, ACI, or WRC, where I am based. My opinions may be correct or they may be incorrect, but I have tried to deliberate the aspects to the best of my understanding. And all of us, whoever is attending this particular webinar, I expect them to rely on their own study of the subject, as well as the relevant provisions, notifications, circulars, whichever, and they come so fast at times, we find it very difficult to concentrate and remember everything at one go. So in this whole presentation, if I'm sharing any particular examples, and if they coincide with any of your clients, then that is purely coincidental. I have no intention to disclose anybody's affairs. I'll be very discreet as far as the discussing whatever I'm going to discuss. What I feel, if we do anything, we need to be happy first. And if we are happy, then we can do anything. So let us attend this session with a happiness in mind, so that this becomes amazing deliberations for each one of us, and it is a mutual deliberations. At the end of both the presentations, some time will definitely be allocated for a question and answers. But I have tried to cover most of the questions that have come to my mind in the form of a FAQ in the presentation itself. These presentations will be shared with everybody, so one need not worry. So, since it is a part of a GST, which is the biggest business reform that all of us have seen, and I will say it is a heart of doing any business activity in today's scenario. So when we refer to heart, it is typically a ECG that we are referring, but in my coinage, ECG stands for enjoy, celebrations, and goodness. So if we have a happiness combined with ECG, we can make the wonders, which is represented by the picture. So basically, why this proposal was introduced, or why this Aadhaar-based GST registration has been introduced by notification number 62 of 2020, dated 20th August 2020 and effective from 21st August 2020. As I understand, Aadhaar is 360-degree mapping using the AI, which is artificial intelligence, which is the biometric of the person. In our GST registration applications, we are uploading our photographs. In an Aadhaar also we have our photographs. So photo sensor matching also would be happening in the background. As we know, each one of us have to map our PAN number with Aadhaar. So even that is getting integrated. In this particular schema, if we do Aadhaar authentication, then the place of business verification has been done away to a reasonable extent. So I assume with the technology, they must be doing a geographical mapping also. Whenever we get other registrations, we are also registering our bank details. And today, government has got all the information in the form of a database, which they are linking to Aadhaar, whereby there will be cross-functional mapping of everything that we are doing using the artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and information technology enabled services. In fact, in my personal opinion, in future, we may see everything get integrated. It can be Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Black Money Act, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and various law compliances, which can be corporate, non-corporate, shop and establishment. I think virtually everywhere now Aadhaar is asked as one of the most important document, which acts as a social security number. And future, I see its importance going up every now and then. Another objective which I understand, every day today we are hearing the uses of fake invoices scam or a GST fraud scams which are appearing in the media. Media, it can be digital, it can be public, or it can be printed, or it can be social media, everywhere. I don't see, we very difficult to imagine also we don't hear such news in a day at least once. Most of us are on the multiple groups, so it can be multiple information, same information flowing in everywhere. But I feel with the matching of Aadhaar, intention of sovereign is to control the menac of fake invoices or a GST fraud scams to the best of one's ability. And technology is going to play a very significant role. And all of us should take the maximum advantage of our technology so that it helps us to put all our affairs in order. Basically, as I understand, government compliances are moving towards the faceless. It can be registrations, it can be compliances, it can be assessments, and in future we may see complete single window registration for anything we want to set up to carry out any kind of a business activity, whereby everything will be available under one window, be it GST, be it MSME, be it MCA, IceGate, customs, subsidy benefits, PAN, TAN, whatever that we could think of. Plus, it has been observed too that there are fly-by-night operators who were taking the advantage of easy registration system which will be reduced significantly, as in many of the cases or majority of the cases there was no field inspection by the GST authorities, which ultimately translated into a fake scams. E-way bills statistics, whatever the e-way bills that are getting generated, they don't map with the transactions reported in the financial systems. So once the mapping of Aadhaar happens to a GST registration, so probably they will try to correlate the data. Plus, they propose to introduce the e-invoicing with the effect from 1st October 2020 for a certain specified class of registered taxable persons, which would be also a technology initiative. GST as such is completely based on the technology. It has got its own flaws. But during the deliberations, we will try to concentrate on the intentions rather than flaws. So if we are conceptually clear about the intentions of particular schema, then it helps us to understand how do we minimize chances of any kind of a lapses whereby the registration can be rejected. Plus other intention, they would like to implement everything done without connects in person. Many people have established their offices from CCD or Starbucks or hideouts or any other place. With this, probably it may curtail down completely. So this is the basic objective which I understand, which this schema is proposing to plan. So we will go to a GST registration. This is applicable to individual, HUF, firm, LLP, company. It can be limited company or a private limited company or a one-person company, association of persons or body of individuals, government authority, artificial jurisdiction person or any other person. Authorized signatory can be individual, Karta of HUF, partners, designated partners for LLP, directors, board of advisors for AOP or body of individuals or managing committee members, or appointed officers or designated officers or authorized person. Typically, whenever we are uploading any GST registration, we are filing the self-declaration of authorization, which can be in the form of a letter or a board resolution or any other appropriate document, which gives the information to the PO that this person is authorized to execute such application of registration in REG1. So Aadhaar number will be required of all the people whom we are reporting in the portal. I always recommend that at least we should have 2 authorized signatory whenever we are applying for a GST registration. The reason is, if there are multiple authorized signatory, if something happens to by way of act of God, then process of compliance doesn't get hindered. One person can look after the compliances in that particular scenario. So let us go to a judicial backdrop with this key from where this proposal was flown in. It started up with the Amendment Act of 2017, where groundwork was provided how this system would be implemented. Suitable rules were also taken care. Some notifications also were issued, and it was deliberated at length at these GST Council meetings. And formal notification covering all above aspects was introduced on 20th August 2020, whereby Aadhaar based GST registration has been introduced. It is not compulsory, but it is recommended that we adopt to this particular system. The reason is process of registration can be cut down substantially, as we see in these following slides. Before we go on to the process of Aadhaar based GST registration, we follow certain practices to proceed, which I have summarized here. Normal GST registration, each one of us are aware because we have been doing it from 1st July 2017. So I'm not going to deliberate anything in this particular presentation. Only Aadhaar based GST registration I'm going to discuss. What should be done typically for executing the Aadhaar based GST registration? Is there anything new, or is it same? Earlier, whoever has given the endorsement of Aadhaar number, we had the option of reporting the Aadhaar number, but with the effect from 21st August 2020, reporting of Aadhaar number has been done away. Now it gets only reported and recorded in the system only when we validate it. Otherwise, entering of the Aadhaar number is being done away by the system itself. We should always obtain the photocopy of Aadhaar card for self-verification, and that would apply for every authorized signatory. It would help to report correct name as reported with Aadhaar authorities so that mismatch error is minimized. Second, we should always verify the Aadhaar number, whereby the OTP will go on the such person's mobile, and you can be assured the Aadhaar number which has been given to you is genuine and it is confirmed by the system. And when you do this particular confirmation, always save the screenshot on your system. I will come to deliberate why that is important in the subsequent slides. Step 3. You verify email as well as the mobile of such person. I have given the reference of the website. And when you do this particular verification, you can't do both together. You have to do one by one, either email first or a mobile first. Choice is yours. But again, please save the screenshot so that you are assured that they are configured properly in the system. If step number 2 and 3 is verified, then you may not proceed on the step 4. But due to some reason, they are not successful, then you probably can opt for a PID number, which is a virtual identity number. It may happen typically, as I have understood, if email is not registered, then this may be required. And option of other authentication, which is either other number or a VID number. Preference is always other number, but if other number is not available, even we can use VID number also. VID number is nothing but a temporary revocable 16-digit random number mapped with other number. It can be used in lieu of other number whenever authentication or eKYC services are performed. Authentication may be performed using VID in a manner similar to using other number. It is not possible to derive other number from VID. So from other number you can get VID, from VID nobody can get the VID number. Now process of other authentication is very similar to what we have been doing it for filing of the GST returns, which are either R1 or 3B or income tax returns. So there is nothing new about as far as the verification process is concerned. Step 5. Please compare Aadhaar card with PAN number, PAN card to match the name. I usually prefer both the names should be same so that prima facie no validation error arises. And if the names or date of birth are different, then it is highly recommended, better to correct and then approach the other authentication. Step 6. If it doesn't match, then chances of invalidations are quite bright. But if they match, then the chances of validations are bright and you may not face any apparent issues. The process is very smooth. In fact, complete validation process you may cover complete in 10 minutes or 15 minutes at the most after you updated all the information in REG1. So basically, I have prepared this in a FAQ form also. So like basically all the question and answers as they were arising in my mind, I have covered in this particular presentation. Can there be multiple other numbers? In my understanding, chances of multiple other numbers are minimal as it is based on biometrics. But considering the fertile minds of many people who can hack the system, and if they have created, then it may be possible, but I am sure, at least I have not come across any cases of multiple other numbers so far. Can there be multiple PAN numbers? Yes, we have come across several cases. There are multiple PAN numbers. Some people have long linked different PAN number to other number. So if that is the case, then the validations issues will arise. So if you have proceeded with the basic steps which I recommended for the basic good practices of Aadhaar verification, then this can be rolled out completely. But if you have a multiple PAN number, then what one should do? It is highly recommended to correct the data by filing the PAN changes applications with the income tax authorities and surrender the other PAN numbers and map PAN number with Aadhaar. But first process of clearance has to go through income tax department, and then you should proceed with the Aadhaar amendments. That is the thumb rules. Have you come across? Yes. Many number of cases, and we also observed that there are multiple PAN number cases, and if government discontinues any PAN number, which for you it is operative, then it can create a lot of issues. You need to approach a lot of authorities to get it restored. So it is better you execute the steps on your own if such situation arise. Otherwise, one PAN, one Aadhaar card, fair enough, there is no problem at all. Can Aadhaar number and PAN card be issued to foreign nationals? Yes, it can be issued, subject to certain stipulations and conditions. Have you come across such cases? Yes, we have come across. And we have personally experienced such kind of scenarios in our clients' cases. And it has gone very smoothly, absolutely. But the process of verification is little extensive as compared to a normal process. Now coming to the core topic of Aadhaar-based GST registration. We need to apply in a normal fashion as we are doing for a GST registration, nothing new. And I assume every participant of the session is aware about that particular process. So I will not deliberate that part. But only point which I would like to draw here, कि whatever the basic information that you are filling up in the REG1, if that is incorrect, then even if your Aadhaar authentication is successful, show cause notices can be issued by the PO, and till such issues are clarified or resolved by filing the appropriate documents, RC will not be issued to any person who is applying for the GST registration. Before August 21st, 2020, it was optional. Now also it is optional. It's not compulsory at all. If you decide, I don't want to do the Aadhaar authentication, then instead of 3 working days or 7 working days maximum, process of granting the registrations will get extended to 21 days. And in the later case, PO can send his person to verify your place of business which you have reported in your registration application. Aadhaar number of all the relevant people has to be given in the REG1, in the sense, first I said Aadhaar is not required to be given, but if you say you have a private limited company and there are 2 directors, and if both are you have reported, then both of them will receive the emails and both of them have to do the Aadhaar authentication. Similarly, if you have more than two people or more than 2 partners or more than 2 designated partners, everybody has to do the Aadhaar authentication. Till then, the process of filing the GST application is not complete. Up to 20th August 2020, once we have submitted, ARN was generated. But now, post 21st August 2020, not post, from 21st August 2020, ARN is not generated till other authentication is done in a cases where that is opted out and where other authentication is not exercised, then followed by the physical verification of premises, and that confirmation is uploaded by the PO, ARN will not be generated. So that application will be treated as if we have just submitted on the portal. So what is the process? We are filing in REG1. We are validating the email as well as the mobile number. Then we are getting the TRN number. Then we are updating all the information. Aadhaar consent. There we will say there is a new window which has been introduced under the registration schema. There you have to give a consent, yes. But there you don't have to enter the Aadhaar number at all. That you will enter when you are doing the validation. Submit the application. Receive email with hyperlink for Aadhaar authentication. This is all on a real-time basis. Very quickly, you need to do the complete Aadhaar verification by entering the Aadhaar number and OTP, which takes couple of minutes to come on the mobile of a person. And this OTP will go only on the mobile number which is registered with the Aadhaar authorities, not what you have quoted in your registration application. But this hyperlink will come in the or will come on the email which you have registered in the application. So verification link you need to click which you have registered in the application. Post Aadhaar verification, ARN would be generated. We need to typically wait for 3 days, whereby they will match the data. It can be less than 3 days. They will match the data, and if there is any defect or deficiency in the document, then the show cause notice will be issued. And if the show cause notice is issued, then we need to submit the documents, and again time limit will apply for grant of RC. And if no show cause is issued, then it is a deemed registration and we will get the REG 6. And it will be notified everything on the email. Whenever the authentication is happening, you are getting the SMS notification as well as the email notifications, which is on a real-time basis or some time gap as required in the system. It's all driven by the technology. Now, when you are giving the consent for Aadhaar authentication, this message will flash. Please make sure that Aadhaar authentication through the link provided on mobiles and emails of promoters, partners, authorized signatories are completed so that registration process may be complete. So if your authorization process is incomplete, your application is not considered as valid. And if you have not given a consent for Aadhaar authentication, then this message will flash. Approval of your registration application may include site verification of the business premises by tax office and or request to submit additional documents. you will receive further communication from tax office. Here they have used the words may include. Wherever it has been provided, if Joint Commissioner authorizes just such approval of the application for receiving the documents on email or through physical delivery, then place of verification may or may not happen. Typical, this is the other authentication. You are giving the other consent, you are submitting the application, you will receive the hyperlink for authentication of Aadhaar of the applicant on the email reported in GST REG1. If there are multiple people, then multiple people will receive such hyperlink on the email IDs quoted. Click here on the hyperlink. That option is provided in the email. You will click that particular option. Then that will take you to the window whereby your TRN number, legal name as you have reported in REG1, name of the authorized signatory, and name as you have given in REG1 will be reflected. There you will tick there will be a bullet. There you will tick, select the other option, enter the other number, generate the OTP, enter the OTP, validate the OTP, success confirmation would be flashed, SMS confirmation would be received, successful page with information of 567 with the photograph of authorized signatory as per Aadhaar data with their mobile number, email ID, address, everything will flash on the screen. Such document you must save in the registration application file. We have come across cases where queries have been raised. He authorized other successful authentication is not valid, especially in case of multiple authorized signatories. If such page is saved, you can upload such document saying that this is the verification confirmation which we have received, which is supported by mobile number, email ID, photograph and everything, which will match with the application that you have uploaded. Once authentication is successful, ARN would be generated and you will receive such email confirmation, which we have been receiving even today prior to 20th August 2020. Typically, when you will see, the ARN will indicate pending for processing. PO, it means the proper officer not allocated. Then in some time, proper officer is allocated, which can be center or state, depending upon the system protocol. And if it is approved information will be there. And if show cause is received, then we need to only upload the documents again which are desired in the show cause. For example, you have uploaded the consent for the place of business, but you have not uploaded the electricity bill or a property tax receipt or any other relevant document which can be considered as a valid document. PO can ask you to provide that. You need to upload and then resubmit the application, and that will be considered as a complete validated submission. Again, other authentication is not required to be done. If I go for a non-other, everything remains the same. Here only you are not going to give the consent. You will submit the application, wait for physical verification or request for documents. If that is asked, you provide the documents, wait for a confirmation of verification, wait for 21 days to check if show cause notice is issued by PO. If show cause received, then submit the documents. If no, registration is deemed to be granted in REG 6. So this is the typical process of non-other based, which is similar to what we were having earlier, but the time limit has been increased typically many times as compared to the old practices. So this is diagrammatically, if I look at normal application, other consent, other authentication, successful ARN generated, wait for show cause notice. If no show cause, deemed RC. If show cause notice, submit documents, then issue of RC within 7 days. But if it is unsuccessful, or if I have done without other consent, then the place of business verification by PO or calling of the documents, then ARN is submitted after confirmation, wait for show cause notice. If no show cause, deemed RC. If show cause, then submit the documents and then issue of RC within 7 days. Show cause will be issued in REG 03. If I go for other authentication, it is a time saving, and if I don't go for other authentication, then it is time consuming. So in my humble opinion, better to go for other authentication, but do the verification of other prior to doing the authentication, as I have recommended in the best practices. Now there are a couple of FAQs which I have built up. Is it compulsory? No. It's voluntary. Is it recommended? Yes, it is recommended. It will save the time. RC can be obtained within 7 days if no show cause notices are issued. That also without physical verification of a place of business. That is where I said probably it will be they are doing the geographical mapping using the technology. They have not made it public, but it may be possible. Is it safe to do other? I feel yes. Only we need to, we are already doing it since ages for ID returns and GST returns. So I don't think there is anything great, anything new. So we can definitely adapt to the system of opting for other based GST registration. Which email ID and mobile number needs to be used for GST registration? Is it the same email ID and same mobile number as used for other registration by the applicant? Not necessary. It can be different email IDs, but all communication will go only on the email IDs and the mobile numbers which are registered in your application. You may keep the same number, or you may keep the same email IDs, but it can be different. Absolutely no problem. It will not invalidate the process of other authentication. This is basically business email IDs can be different and personal email IDs can be different. So we need to decide. It is at the discretion of the applicant which one he wants to opt for. It's all validations will happen of all authorized signatories. If Aadhaar number is quoted for the applicant or for all authorized signatory, will it do away the need of DSC in case of a company's LLP or OPC? No, DSC would be made must for companies LLP, OPC. Companies, when I say it can be private limited, closely held limited companies, or a listed companies, or even a Section 8 companies. It can be anything. Of late, due to COVID-19, EVC facilities have been introduced for 3B and R1, but it is not extended for this. To my knowledge, when Aadhaar authentication is completed and ARN is generated, then that will be considered as the final application, otherwise no. What is the time limit of Aadhaar verification? The time limit is 15 days. You need to verify through hyperlink, which is been received on the email. So that is to be taken care. Is there is any master notification number? Master notification number is 62 of 2020, dated 20th August 2020, effective from 21st August 2020. Basically, whatever the legal background that has been covered in this particular notifications. If Aadhaar authentication fails, then normal application will be converted into a regular application. Physical place of business verification may or may not happen. Based on the physical verification or on the submission of the documents, if no show cause notices is issued, then RC will be issued, but it will be a time consuming affair. Can proper officer verify the place of business physically even after other verification? Normally, PO will not verify place of business, but if they have any other reliable information, then they may do so after obtaining the proper approval of their higher ups with reasoning. If other authentication is done, does it mean search, seizure, survey won't happen? Aadhaar based GST registration is only for the registration of the application. No other things are issued. It can happen depending on the information available with them, but they have to follow all the due diligence and the processes as provided under the law for executing such verifications. If directors and foreign directors or partners don't have Aadhaar number, then what should be done? In our opinion, such directors or a foreign director and partner's name should be avoided, if possible by proper documentation, and appoint someone as authorized signatory. And if it is not possible, then it is better that such person apply for Aadhaar number, wait for the allotment of the Aadhaar number, and then file the GST registration application. If a company or LLP is a partner in the entity, who needs to apply for a GST registration? What should be done? In that case, designated person from such entities, their authorization is being reported in the REG1, and compliance should be done accordingly. whether old registered taxpayers under GST Act 2017 need to endorse Aadhaar authentication. In my opinion, as of now, it is not compulsory, but in future, in order to do the 360-degree mapping and the analytics, it may introduce, but as of now, it is not required. If person doesn't have an Aadhaar number, then how he can apply for GST registration? He has to apply for an Aadhaar number first. Then only he can apply for GST registration, because more or less that is going to happen. And if Aadhaar number is not there, then long process of registration is provided. But we are opting for a Aadhaar registration wherever it is possible. If the entity who is applying for a registration is a government authority or a departmental authority or public authority, how they can apply? They will apply through their authorized signatory, and they have to give their such authorized signatories Aadhaar number for validity. For example, in case of a jail, jailer's information needs to be given, and he will do all this verification, because even a lot of activities are done in the jail which may be subject to GST, or it can be any activity. Everybody can do everything under the sun. There is no restriction. Coming to the conclusion, with the advent of technology, which none of us could imagine few years or a couple of decades back, now it has become a reality. And what is stored in future, none of us know. In my humble opinion, it would be recommended that all of us put our documentation in order. When I say documentation in order, it is ours as well as our clients or our advisors or our organizations have a transparent affairs, so that we don't face any hazards of apparent lapses in times to come. And hopefully, it may curtail down fake invoices, scam, or GST fraud scams to a reasonable extent or to the minimum level. But as advisors and contributors to the nation, we shall advise our clients professionally to comply with law and enjoy the advantages of technology to our advantages. With this, I present my first presentation. I'm just starting my new presentation on revocation. So
Nitin bhai,
please kindly wait for 2 minutes.
yeah. Nitin bhai, can we jump
Yeah.
on to the second topic? Can we just take queries for this topic so that it would get answered and it is connected? So
I'm fine. I have no problems.
okay.
Sir.
So I request Aditya Surte to take up queries.
I hope the queries are not difficult.
No, sir. I think the queries will give us a more practical understanding of the issues being faced. Now, I will take up, sir, two queries together because they
Yeah.
are sort of linked. First query is that if mobile number and email ID is not registered with Aadhaar, can we apply for Aadhaar-based GST registration? Also, in many cases, the date of birth is also missing. I think what the querist means to say is that in many cases the date of birth is missing in the Aadhaar database or on the Aadhaar card. In such cases, can we apply for Aadhaar based registration? And
No, it will
the
not
related.
happen.
Okay, yeah, yes, sir.
No, you complete. Then I will give the answer.
Yeah, the second question was a related one, is asking if any person has not updated email while obtaining the Aadhaar card, but mobile number has been updated properly. Now, this is a scenario which most of the people are facing, that they may have linked their mobile number to the Aadhaar card or Aadhaar database, but email address may not have been linked. Can the Aadhaar verification process while registration be completed, or email linking to the Aadhaar is a must?
Aditya, can you take up 3 also?
Yes. Sir, another query with regard to this is that if more than 2 partners, whether the hyperlink is sent to individual email ID separately for Aadhaar authentication.
So
Can I
there is
take
another
all
query.
three?
Yes.
Yes. No, sir. I think you can take up one by one if you want.
Okay. The first query is key where mobile number and Aadhaar number and email IDs are not linked to Aadhaar.
Correct.
So in that case, Aadhaar-based authentication will fail. So you have to go for a long process of 21 days. It will not work. In that particular scenario, my recommendation to get your data updated with any Aadhaar centers, which can be post office or banks, because a lot of banks are authorized to do that particular verification. It may take 3-4 days to get the data updated on the Aadhaar database, and once that is done, you can immediately go for it, so that at least instead of 21 days, your process will cut down by a week to a week.
Sir, on the lines of that, actually there is another query wherein they said that they had actually tried for Aadhaar registration, and the registration was not, the ARN was actually not received by them. So, and the officer, when they approached the officer that the ARN is not generated, the officer said that till the time that ARN is received, ARN is not received, they cannot even go by the option 2, which is for 21 days. So once you have applied for Aadhaar and the ARN is not received, you cannot even go by the 21-day method.
Till the ARN is generated, no process will happen from the departmental side at all.
So because
in that case, you have to register a grievance. Okay, I have done my Aadhaar authentication. Snapshot of Aadhaar you can apply, saying I have already done, but ARN is not generated.
Okay.
This can be a practical issue.
Yes.
So, sir, what this means is, even though the procedure speaks about deemed registration within 3 days, if you have applied for Aadhaar based registration and nothing is happening, so even you cannot even approach the officer saying that, okay, if Aadhaar authentication is not happening from your end, do the physical verification and give me a registration within 21 days.
Yes.
Okay. Sir,
such aspect can be represented.
Yes, sir. We'll take that into account.
Yeah.
Another aspect of one of the questions was that, sir, in many cases, the date of birth in Aadhaar database is missing.
Yeah.
In such
so
cases,
again,
what will
the
happen?
process of correction has to happen with the Aadhaar.
Okay, so that means, sir, is that date of birth is missing in the Aadhaar database, still the Aadhaar validation will fail?
No, see what will happen if topically Aadhaar card has got either date of birth or a year of birth.
Yes.
And if there is a mapping of Aadhaar and PAN, so when you are doing the Aadhaar registration initially, each one of us got only the year of birth. But if it was mapped properly, then you will not face the issue of Aadhaar authentication. Because the mobile number is registered.
Yes, sir. That was my question. Even if your mobile number or email is registered with Aadhaar, but there is a
Yeah.
problem with the date of birth, still the validation will fail.
Say, for example, my date of birth is say 5th April, but I have in my Aadhaar it is appearing as 11th April. So there is a mismatch.
Yes, sir.
That will happen. So it needs to be corrected at either of the ends, which I have covered in my FAQs already.
Okay.
Step 5, if I recall, best practices.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I think you can
Another,
start with the revision.
yeah. Just
Yes.
one query that was there.
One question which was asked, email will go to every authorized signatory which you have applied for.
Yes. Individually.
Yes. And
Okay.
everybody has to do the individual verification. So typically when you are filing the application of registration and you have given say 3 names, then in that other authentication option, all 3 names with their email IDs and the mobile numbers will appear.
Sir, one last question before we move ahead.
Yeah.
One participant has asked a query that stating that Aadhaar based registration is better in case the place of business and place of residence are the same. What happens in case if the place of business is different than place of residence? I think what issue the participant is trying to cover here is that since the Aadhaar card cover only contains the address of our place of residence,
Hmm.
so whether the address is mentioned in the registration and the address mentioned on Aadhaar, whether that is also getting validated. Your answer to that, sir?
See, basically, for example, I have applied for the application and I am based in Orissa. My residential address will be of Orissa, but I have applied for a registration in Mumbai. So when I'm uploading the documents of my registration, I'll be uploading the documents of my place of business, which would be verified by the PO before giving me their RC. He will say check out whether NOC is there or not, whether property tax receipt there or not, or electricity bill receipt is there or not. So that verification of place of business will be automatically done by the system, the person who is reviewing the application. Other authentication
Sir,
is only the authenticating the authorized signatory, nobody else, because a lot of fake people are there.
correct, sir.
Yeah,
I
that is
think
the
the
only intention, otherwise nothing else.
I think the procedure with regard to the verification of place of business still remains the same as it was before this 21st of
Yes,
August.
yes, yes.
Okay, sir. Sir, we can move ahead with your presentation, sir.
Okay, so should I start my second one?
Yes, sir. By all means.
Okay.
Before Nitin Bhai goes on to the second presentation, I would like to just make a few announcements that those members who have still not renewed their renewal fees, they may please renew at the earliest. Also, those life members who have still not paid subscription charges for GST review may also pay at the earliest. Thirdly, from tomorrow, we are starting a 3-session series on charitable organizations that is jointly with Malad Chamber of Tax Consultants. A member may take benefit of the same. The details are available on the website of STPM. And on 8th of September, we are organizing a mega guidance cell where Deputy Commissioner Devendra Shinde would be addressing the members. The topic is issues in filing of MVAT CST appeals. So all the members who have queries, they can send it to GSTPM so that can be covered up on 8th of September. Thank you.
Is this visible? Is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Welcome, Janak bhai. I will not repeat what I have done it before. So before we go to the process of revocation, we will understand the process of GST cancellation in a very brief way. Cancellation can be initiated by the registered taxable person if his turnover below threshold limits, or his business is closed or transferred, discontinued due to merger, acquisition, spin-off, or changes in the constitution from a proprietor to private limited to MSP, or in any particular manner, or there is a demise of a registered taxable person, then cancellation would happen. And proper officer also can do the cancellation. For which he will give the notice in REG 17, for which the reply has to be filed by the person in REG 18. He can drop the proceedings by issuing the order in REG 20, or cancellation in REG 19 within 30 days. But if one is registered and his application is cancelled, then still he is required to pay the tax or other dues as applicable under the provisions of GST Act 2017. Because two things are very certain: taxes and death. Nobody can run away with it. Now, what are the reasons in which PO can initiate the cancellation? If RTP has contravened the provisions of the Act or rules, which can be issue of bogus invoices or defaults or non-issuance of e-way bill. These are all illustrative. Or if registered taxable person is registered under Section 10, he has not filed returns for more than 3 months. And if he is not registered under Section 10, then for other RTPs, time limit is 6 months. For RTP has obtained a voluntary registration but has not commenced the business within 6 months from the date of registration, or if registration is obtained by way of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression of facts, then under Section 169, notice can be served either on the email which is registered on the ESTN portal and which was reported or provided in REG 1 of the RTP, or it is made available on the portal. Law provided the personal hearing is a must before cancellation. So this we are talking about the old scenario.
Nitin bhai, your voice is little unclear.
Okay. Earlier it
now,
was clear.
yeah, now it is better. I think the closer
Okay,
you.
fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So what is a revocation of cancellation? Revocation means the official cancellation of a decision or a promise. If I go by a dictionary meaning, but when I read with reference to the GST provisions, revocation of cancellation of registration would mean that decision to cancel the registration has been reversed and the registration is still valid. For example, my registration was cancelled in October 2019 and today I apply for the revocation and it is accepted. Then it will be valid as if old registration which was cancelled has been completely revoked. But what are the other implications that we will see in the subsequent pages? Let us understand what is the impact of cancellations from a supplier of goods or a provider of services, as well as buyer of goods or a recipient of services. Because every supply that we make, it's a, for one it is an outward supply, for other one is an inward supply. So it has got a corresponding effect on the buyer. So I have done the comparison of both. It is a disruption of a business for the supplier or a provider of a service. Whereas buyer won't be able to claim the ITC due to section 16 restriction, because RTP whose registration is cancelled, he may not have filed the returns and he may not have paid the taxes also. If once registration is cancelled, then it acts as a disreputation to business. For buyer, if he cannot avail the ITC, then there can be a working capital blockage, which can sometimes create the issues. Supplier will not be able to file the returns beyond the cancellation date. Considering the same example, October 19, if it is cancelled, I cannot file the returns for November, December, or December 19, January 20, or subsequent. Buyer will not be able to claim the ITC refund under section 54 if all stipulations are satisfied, as such invoices will not appear in their GST R2A, and it may create the issue, or it may create the more litigations. Supplier is not able to, because of the cancellation, there is a failure to pay GST dues, interest and penalties. It may happen, there can be a genuine issues with the supplier of not paying taxes. But law compliances gives some option of 3 months or 6 months, depending on the category of registration. But it cannot give you more than that. So every supplier has to organize his affairs to keep his compliances up to date wherever in the best practical possible manner. If supplier has not filed GST returns or not paid taxes, but the buyer has claimed the ITC, then he will be required to reverse along with the interest. So here there will be economic outflow of funds once they have paid to the supplier, second on account of the reversal, Third, on account of the interest, which would be hitting the bottom line of a buyer. If tax invoice is issued after cancellation, then provisions of section 73, 74, read with section 122 can be initiated by the PO. As typically after cancellation, one cannot issue the invoices. Typically. Blocking of ITC credits, rule 36(4), which every one of us are getting the notices. Buyer will initiate the recovery proceedings of ITC. They say, you are not reported, please pay me back ITC. And that also they will demand with the interest. And again, it results into a trade disputes. If invoices are not reported in 2A, even though we have documentation and our books of accounts and we can prove it is a genuine transactions, some notices may be initiated for fake invoices or a bogus invoices, which can prompt the litigation and which can go on for ages, which is not the prudent, desirable situation for any buyer. When the revocation of cancellation will apply, it will apply only when the tax officer has cancelled the registration of a taxable person on his own motion. If RTP has applied for cancellation, then he cannot apply for the revocation of cancellation. That point has to be noted by everybody. Such taxable person can apply to the officer for revocation of cancellation within 30 days from the date of cancellation order. This I am going as per the old provisions. This new revocation beneficiary scheme which has come, which will be deliberating in the subsequent pages, but the background has to be covered, so that's why it has been included in this presentation. This is the procedure for revocation. RTP can file the application in REG 21 if his registration has been cancelled suo motu by the proper officer. He must submit within 30 days from the date of service of cancellation order at the portal or email. If proper officer is satisfied, he can revoke the cancellation of registration by an order in REG 22 within 30 days from the date of receipt of the application. Reasons for revocation of cancellation of registration must be recorded in writing. Proper officer can reject the application for revocation by an order in REG 05 and communicate same to the applicant, but before rejecting, he must issue show cause notice in REG 23 for the applicant to show why the application should not be rejected. Applicant will file a reply within 7 days in REG 24. They are taking 30 days and we are given only 7 days to respond. Again, the decision of revocation they will convey within 30 days in REG 24. Please note, revocation of cancellation cannot be filed unless GST dues, interest or late fees as applicable are not paid up to the cancellation date. So that has to be done by the RTP. There is no option to seek the installments from the government to pay dues in part. It has to be paid fully first. Then only that revocation application would be entertained by the PO. Otherwise, it is liable to be rejected on the grounds that total taxes, total dues as applicable are not paid. So if I go to the roadmap, there was a press release of 14th March, which said we are introducing a one-time measure to facilitate those who want to conduct the business for a revocation of cancellation of GST registration, which was a big relief to the taxpayers. Such press release also stated registration which have been cancelled till 14th March 2020, they need to apply for a revocation before 30th June 2020. However, no notification was issued in this regard, and tax payers were unable to get the revocation of cancelled registration. So, removal of difficulty order was issued under section 172, and order number is 01 of 2020, dated 25th June 2020, which said the taxpayer whose registrations has been cancelled till 12th June 2020 can file the application for revocation by 30th September 2020. So now if we want to file any registration for revocation of cancellation, then the last date is 30th September 2020. And if we had filed for revocation and it was rejected and we have gone for an appeal under section 107, due to internal interim relief, we can request appellate authority to give offline order saying that RTP would like to avail the benefit of removal of difficulty order of so and so number, and that should be granted, and such copy can be attached to the revocation application, and based on that revocation application will be considered by the PO. GST and authorities, such functionality was made active on 6th August 2020. It is always a case we have found the dates when the proposal was introduced and when it is implemented, we always find due to some technical reasons for which we are not aware of. But Indian intention appears to be to help the people or stakeholders. But how much it is beneficial to RTP and how much it is beneficial to Sovereign, we will see in the subsequent pages. So these dates we got to remember, which is the just broad outline on which the revocation was introduced. If revocation is done, cancellation is done by PO, then only we will proceed, otherwise no. RTP will apply within less than 30 days in REG 21. If accepted, revocation within 30 days in REG 22. If rejected, then show-cause will come in REG 23, for which reply has to be filed by the RTP within 7 days. And if it is accepted, again it will come to REG 22. And if rejected, then it is REG 05. This is the functionality. 6th August. All agreed taxpayers who were not able to meet the deadlines. To help them, this was introduced, and I think this may be the last opportunity to go for the revocation under this law, unless it is extended further. Again, this, if one has filed the appeal, then now offline order can be obtained, that can be uploaded, and typically under the services registration and application for revocation to file the application is very simple, but only care that should be taken whenever we are filing any kind of a revocation application. The reason should be accurate, truthful, and it should never be vague. I'm not repeating the who are unable to get their cancellation of registration revoked, despite having fulfilled all requirements for revocation of cancellation of registration. To them, this removal of difficulty order is applicable, for which cancellation order passed up to 12 June 2020. Later of the following dates shall be considered: date of service of the cancellation order or 31st August 2020. So typically, if I count 30 days, it will be 29 September 2020 for filing the applications of revocations under the such beneficial notification. This is again same what I have covered in the video, but it is in a very simple. These dates have to be kept in mind. RTP has to pay the tax, file all his returns, be it R1, 3B, before filing for revocations.
Nitin bhai, your voice is unclear.
Hello.
Yes, now it is clear.
If satisfied, then they will issue the revocation order in REG 22. If not satisfied, REG 23. RTP will file the reply in REG 24 within 7 days. And if not satisfied, then REG 05. And if satisfied, REG 22 will come into the picture. Now, who cannot apply for the revocations? GST practitioners, UIN holders, that is UN bodies, embassies, and other notified person. The reason is, if you look at the definition of a registered taxable person, they are specifically excluded from the definition. That's why they cannot apply. And if RC is cancelled by the RTP or legal heads, they cannot apply. But if you are eligible RC, but you have filed GSTR 10, which is a final return, then also you cannot go for revocation application at all. So that work has to be taken care. So basically, who can apply? RTP who have paid taxes and dues as applicable. RTP who have filed all the returns up to cancellation date. And RTP who have not filed final returns in form GST REG 10. It is executed in the faceless manner by using the technology on the portal. But sometimes physical documents also can be asked, but it may not. 99% it will be executed without any personal interaction. or personal meetings. So if I look at the process, it is a non-filing date of GST returns. Cancellation order date is very important. One has to file the returns till the cancellation date first. Then the revocation order will be received. On receipt of revocation order, whatever the pending returns are there of R1 or 3B, RTP has to file within 30 days. If it is not filed in the 30 days, then other processes would apply as applicable. So I take the example, I have not filed my returns from April 2019. So it has been cancelled in October. System will not permit me to file the returns beyond October 19. But if I receive the October revocation order, say on 30th August 2020, then I need to file all my returns up to August within 30 days. That is the process that is to be completed to enjoy this particular benefits. Now here question comes, if a registered taxable person, his RC has been cancelled by PO, but carries on its business, can he apply for a new registration so that he doesn't have to pay old tax dues? If registration is cancelled under section 29(2), read with rule 22 of CGST rules, but if RTP is carrying on business, he should apply for revocation of cancellation of registration under section 30, read with rule 23 of CGST rules, because considering the provisions of section 29(3), he may have any GST liability to pay on account of business carried out. Then RTP shall be liable to pay such tax, interest, late fees, as well as other dues as applicable. And if he gets new GST registration, then probably it may be looked upon as it is an intention to defraud the revenue, which should not be desirable. Whether interest and late fees as applicable would be payable by the RTP from the date of cancellation till the date of revocation? Yes. Whether all the returns visible 3B and GSTR1 need to be filed by the RTP from the date of cancellation till the date of revocation? Yes. If GSTR9 is pending, even that should be filed in my opinion. If 9C is also is applicable, and if it is not filed, then also that should be filed. Whether buyer would get the benefit of ITC claim in respect of tax invoices issued by the supplier during the intervening period of date of cancellation till the date of revocation? Answer can be yes as well as no. Yes, if time limit of 16(4) is not expired, and if the time limit is expired, then ITC may lapse. It's my personal opinion. If RC is cancelled and revocation application of the RTP has been rejected by the PO and RTP, has filed an appeal before the appropriate authorities pending in such cases, how does one apply for revocation of registration in view of a removal of difficulty order? RTP should ask for an offline order which can be uploaded, and then that revocation will be considered by the PO. What reasons should be stated? Reasons should be specific, genuine, and accurate. Please explain all the reasons, and you can upload attached document of reasons also. which can act as a safeguard for you. If reasons that you give are don't sound reasonable or unreal, which can prompt PO to investigate further or reject the application. Impact of revocation from both the perspective, continuation of a business. Buyer will not be able to claim the ITC due to Section 16 restrictions, because whatever the R1 invoices would be reported by the supplier that will appear in the current year's 2A, it will not appear in the respective year 2A, and the annual return is or 30th September date is not extended, then he can still claim the benefits. Restoration of a reputation of a business, it will take some time, but it can be rebuilt by the supplier. Release of working capital, if timely action taken, but interest would be the cost to the buyer, there is no option to claim a refund. To become compliant under GST law by filing returns within 30 days of revocation. Whether it would be possible to claim the ITC refund under Section 54, that needs to be examined on the basis of the facts. There will be option to pay the GST dues, interest, penalties as applicable before restoration. If ITC was reversed, can it be claimed in the future as tax invoices of the supplier would declare in current financial year, GST or 2A or 2B? Now, in my opinion, it may be possible to claim, because there is no time limit for the reclaim of the ITC. But here only, in my opinion, that it will be applicable only in the cases of Rule 37 reversals, but situations of revocation of cancellations won't be eligible for. But only that if you have done the reversal on account of the Rule 37 of not paying supplier within 180 days, then that would be possible. Otherwise, according to me, the chances will be very, very plain. Tax invoice can be issued in the regular course as RC is restored from the cancellation date. If buyer has recovered the ITC from the supplier, to get it back can be a big challenge. If timely action on unblocking of the ITC credits can happen of the rules from 9th October 2019, whereby the limits were specified. If notices are issued on account of the fake invoices or bogus invoices, in future, depending on the documentation, justification and defense can be filed to help our clients. Product 01/2020 dated 25th June 2020 is a blessing in disguise for all genuine stakeholders. It is simply recommended that all stakeholders should take the advantage of such option of availing the option of revoking the cancellation by explaining all reasons in writing factually as well as truthfully, so that registration is restored and one is is able to carry on their business activities without break in legal compliances and to put one's house in order. But in my opinion, if beneficial clarification from the buyer's perspective for the eligibility to claim the ITC, if provided by way of a notification, then it would be a win-win situation for all stakeholders' point of view, as Soren is getting GST dues, interest as well as late fees as applicable. I always say we should surround ourselves with the people who talk about vision and ideas and not people. I appreciate each of you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to discuss and deliberate my thoughts on both the topics. With this, I hand over the proceedings to the organizers.
Thank you, Nitin Bhai. This was really an insightful session on both the topics. Let us quickly jump to queries if we have one or two queries. let us finish it off in 5-6 minutes.
Okay, so I think most of the queries, Raj, were covered by Nitin Bhai in his presentation itself.
Okay.
So there are not many. Only one, sir, I will ask. This is with regard to the beneficial notification that has been issued for revocation up to 30th of September, because this seems relevant. The registration was cancelled in February 2018 for non-filing of GST returns. Now the system does not allow to file the returns. How may we get revocation of registration as per the beneficial notification issued allowing revocation up to 30th of September? That is the question.
Can you just come again, please?
So the question is that the RC was cancelled in February 18 for non-filing of returns.
Okay.
Now they are not obviously not able to file the returns.
Hmm.
They are asking how can we get the revocation of registration done as per the beneficial notification that has been issued up to 30th of September.
I think that recently they allowed the facility of filing the returns from July 17 till last date, if I recall.
Even in case of persons whose registration has been cancelled for non-filing.
Obviously, if it is allowed for the other segments of the people who have not filed the returns, so under my assumption, if this process is completed, probably that may be eligible to be eligible for.
So I think there has been a follow-up of this also. The participants have stated that the portal does not allow them to file the pending returns, and they have not filed the GSTR 10. I think the participant can himself ask this query, sir, if you're okay with it.
1 minute. See, if the registration is cancelled in February 2018, it means that they must not have filed the returns 6 months prior to that.
Yes, sir.
Correct? So that will be somewhere, if it will be August 2017.
Yes, sir. Correct.
So if they can file the returns of July and August 2017, probably it may work. I have not tried it myself, so I will not say. Because that till the cancellation date, that is February 18, if they can file the returns, then only it will be possible. Otherwise, they have to go through other legal means that are available to them.
Okay, sir. One more question is that suo motu cancellation has been done in October 2017. All the taxes have been paid and GSTR 3B has been filed, but GSTR 1 remains to be filed. Now the system is not allowing to file GSTR 1. Can this be covered in the revocation process?
Up to which month?
October 2017.
Sorry, I did not hear exactly.
The registration
Again,
was cancelled by the officer in October 17.
Okay.
The 3Bs have been filed and taxes have been paid, but GSTR 1 has not been filed.
So that will be a technical issue which has got to be dealt with the GSTN portal, because portal code is different than a law.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
These are all practical issues which we come across.
Yes, sir. I think all the other questions have been addressed by you in your presentation that I see, and we've already we've overshot the time. So I think we can conclude with the questions.
Yes.
I think Nitin Bhai is also part of GSTPM also. So, sir, if you share your contact details, then people can ask you the queries if you're okay with it.
Yeah, I can. It is there in my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Can I? If you want me to share now, I can share.
No,
Should
if
I
it is
put
there
it
in
in
the
the messages?
presentation, it is fine.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I think Raj, we can conclude the
Yes.
questions and we can move ahead.
We can conclude the questions definitely. Now I quickly request Parth Badeka to offer a hearty vote of thanks to today's speaker Nitin Bhutaji.
Good evening, one and all. Thank you for the patient hearing of all the participants which are there. At the outset, I would like to say that because this issue was a very live issue, Mr. Nitin Bhuta actually had very little time to prepare. But in the very little time that he had, he has given such an exhaustive presentation and on two very different topics. And he has also given so many FAQs, and they are not the generic FAQs that we sometimes see with the department. These are FAQs which are dealing with actual real issues, which will help a lot of practitioners. So I sincerely thank you, Nitin sir, for such a wonderful presentation and for such an exhaustive presentation that you have given. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I request everyone to give a round of applause to him.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Nitinji.
Thank you.
We conclude this successful study circle meeting now. We are pleased to announce that around 225 participants had attended it.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So, do we end this meeting now,
Yes.
madam?
Yes.
How
Thank
do
you
we
very
do?
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, one and
Nitin ji.
all.
Thank you, one.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.